Want to start?
Yes. Okay. So we are recording. So, all right, everyone. Welcome to the Inglewood Library's Think Peace class, where we will be learning proper techniques to respectfully and effectively communicate with someone who is suffering from dementia or other cognitive issues. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome Mindy Sterling and Roger Rhodes from the Home Watch Caregivers joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks everyone for joining us. We hope that you find something in the information and the stories that we share that you can relate to. And if you need to reach out to us for even more information, we are always here. We're education based, which is why we're so grateful to be involved with Inglewood Library. When I first started with Home Watch Caregivers over 11 years ago, I started as a caregiver. And one of the things that I ran into on a regular basis was cognitive issues, not only in older adults, but even in younger folks. And what was a good part of our company and what we're proud of is in our caregiving was there was a program called Pathways to Memory. And I became certified in that so that I would be able to work with people to improve their cognitive status and help them to either age in place or be able to function in their homes or work with spouses or relatives or friends. And I learned so much, and it got incorporated in my career later with wanting to be the education director. I'm very proud to introduce Roger Rhodes, who is my boss. I've worked for that entire time, and maybe bring some interesting new perspectives, some tools, and some understanding about this very misunderstood situation, and give you some helpful hints on what you might be able to do in any of these situations. So take it away, Roger.
Thank you, Mindy. We can go to the next slide. We'll get started. This presentation will give us some tools, and then the next one in August, we're going to go more deep into the disease process and some more tools. So we'll give you a taste here right now. Just setting the table. We're living longer. I grew up with older parents. They would be 102 and 104 this year. So the lifespan is growing rapidly, and the fastest growing segment of the US population right now is people 85 and older. So one of the clinical studies has shown that over half of us, once we reach our 80s, are going to have cognitive loss. You know, the brain tissue is, wears down just like a bicep. So we're living longer, and therefore we're seeing more dementia. In 1950, only 15% of women 80 years old reached their 90th birthday. And now it's almost half of those people. If you're a woman in your 80s, you've got a good chance of going and continuing into your 90s. I'm a baby boomer. 10,000 baby boomers turned 65 today. 10,000 baby boomers turn 65 tomorrow. So we're the older set of US citizens who are hitting the shore, aging at a very rapid rate. So today, a 75-year-old able-bodied person is equal to a 65-year-old 30 years ago. This last bullet I didn't use for years until I saw it in 2 clinical studies. But a baby born today, here in July of 2020, as a 50% of those people will reach the age of 100. So just kind of set the table about how we're aging here in America. Okay, next slide. Okay, talking about dementia. Dementia is actually not a disease. Many people are misinformed. Dementia is a symptom. Just like I say, I have coughing. Well, what's coughing? Coughing's a symptom just like dementia is a symptom. If I have coughing, maybe it's because I have a sore throat, maybe I have allergies, maybe I have a cold, maybe there's some environmental dust. But dementia is a symptom that changes the brain function, and it's caused by various diseases that affect the brain chemistry and the brain cells. And our next presentation next month, we're going to go more into detail medically about those brain chemistry changes and brain cell changes. So if we can go to the next one. There we go. Oh, there's this, the top bullet just came in. It is a symptom, not a disease. We can now go to the next one. Oh, okay. we're getting some bullets coming up. But dementia affects a lot of part of our lives, not just our long-term or short-term memory, not just our attention span, but how fast we process verbal cues. And then at the bottom, activities of daily living, ADLs, dementia will affect those. And basically the ADLs are basics of getting through the day. We have to get up and walk, and we have to shower and dress and eat, and dementia can affect all those parts of our normal daily lives. Okay, quick one on memory loss. Lots of reasons for memory losses. Many are reversible. We're going to cover that next month. There's about 25 things that are reversible that aren't Alzheimer's, but we've got lots of studies that can help us measure the cognitive loss and how much cognitive reserve we still do have. Let's let all these populate. I know many of the folks listening to this probably know someone or have a friend or family member or neighbor they've been exposed to people with dementia, but here's some of the basic symptoms that we see. My father-in-law was a doctor and had two types of dementia. He had Alzheimer's and he had vascular dementia from strokes. And he would seem very normal, but in about 20 minutes in, he's asking you the same question that he asked a few minutes ago. He would mix up words and names. He would call my wife his wife's name. We would take him out on walks and would have to keep an eye on him because he would get lost and walk away. Hard to process information, hard to process following directions. The reason why we're giving us one of the reasons today is it gets so burdensome for families to have a loved one who can't follow directions and you have to keep repeating things. Many times they lose their initiative. They lose their interest in things that they used to love earlier in their life. And then sometimes there's personality changes. There'll be anger and confusion. Paranoia is very, very common. Luckily, with Dad in the house living with us for 7.5 years, we didn't have any major personality changes. But making poor judgments is all part of the symptoms of dementia. Okay, if we can go to the next one. Okay. Besides making poor judgments, it's also hygiene can change, poor eating habits, again, making poor decisions with your own personal safety. Okay, some of the things we teach our CNAs, our caregivers, our employees is proper dementia communication. One thing we have to realize is somebody with dementia, with memory loss, wakes up every morning with their anxiety level already over their head. They know they should know things. They can't find the right words. They know they're losing control of their lives, their confidence, and that anxiety level is something we need to be conscious of when we communicate with them. So we just need to remember, this is a disease process. This is not the person you knew from years ago. They still need and deserve our respect, and we need to, maintain their self-esteem and dignity. 90% of the communication is nonverbal. So trying not to give away your own anger and your own confusion when they're going down the cognitive health slide is important. In their lives, we need to slow everything down for them. Talk slowly. This bullet about KISS, K-I-S-S, keep it slow, simple, and short. Asking them a long question is hard for them to process, so use few words and simple phrases. Give them two choices because it's hard for them to process a long communication. So in our world, when we deal with people with dementia, they're in their reality, and we need to be in their reality. So there are no wrong answers. They're always correct. We never correct them. We try to avoid negative statements, and we try to avoid talking around them. Sometimes with somebody with dementia, a friend will come over and they'll talk to the family member, not the one with dementia. And it's very insulting and hurtful that we talk about them in front of them. So this last bullet, we're going to cover 10 tools called Think Peace on how we can help people focus and concentrate better in the environment that they find themselves. Quick list of do's and don'ts. We never want to argue with them. We want to agree. We don't try to reason with them, because their reality is their reality. So instead of trying to reason, we want to divert their attention. Stay away from shaming and trying to lecture them. Words that we want to try to avoid are, don't you remember? I told you so. Can't you remember? Those are all hurtful things, and they can't. So we're trying to stay away from all the items on the left-hand side, and also trying to support them with things where we encourage them and reinforce them and help them do things that they can do, and try to remain calm and patient with them. Okay. Some of the Think Peace acronyms. When you have memory impairment, again, there's frustration and anger, sometimes behavioral disruptive behaviors. So we need to find a way to help them communicate. So here's a tool that was developed by, came out of the Alzheimer's Association in Western New York State, who in turn, Mindy mentioned the pathways of memory. This comes from the pathways to memory way of helping folks. So T is just toileting. They may be fidgeting around, not focusing. Try to get them to go to the bathroom and take that off the table. We mentioned earlier that folks sometimes have poor nutrition and don't eat properly. So perhaps they're hungry or thirsty. Dehydration is huge with seniors, and dehydration can look like dementia and can really disrupt the brain chemistry. So look at the hunger and the thirst side. Incontinence. It's not uncommon to have incontinence with this disease process. That can cause a lot of discomfort and pain and embarrassment. So make sure that they're clean and dry so that they can focus better. N for the noise level. Processing sometimes with dementia is kind of like ADD. One of our daughters has ADD, and all the distraction and noise around them, somebody said, is like static on a radio that's not quite tuned into the right channel. And all that noise level is very disruptive and hard for them to focus and concentrate. The K on no, this is also helpful for caregivers. In our practice, we have a social profile filled out for every client or patient that has dementia, so we know something about them. Quick story, we took care of a lady who had personality disorders and was actually a ballerina in the Tulsa Ballet Company and volunteered down at the Braille Institute, downtown Denver, for 40 years. And when she wouldn't cooperate and wouldn't focus and wouldn't get dressed and wouldn't take her meds and wouldn't eat her meals, we would say, you were a beautiful dancer when you were in ballet. And that would bring her back to something to remember. Bless you for helping all those blind people you worked with for 40 years. She could remember 1945. She couldn't remember she had breakfast 5 minutes ago, but knowing something about her and bringing up topics she liked to talk about, like ballet and like helping the blind, was helping us bring her back to give her little successes, things she could remember and talk about with pleasure. The P is for pain. I was working with a lady on the Pathways of Memory program, and she was fidgeting around and wasn't focusing and was having disruptive behavior. And I looked down at her shoes, and she had a pink shoe on and a blue shoe on, and they were both left-footed. And I said, let's go back and get you changed. And we put on some comfortable shoes, and she had laser focus after that. It was the pain she was going through. But medications not taken properly can also cause that. The E for environment, help them focus. Too cold or too dark or too bright, too messy. I worked with the PhD. He was one of the former superintendents of Littleton School District. And I was trying to help him with some of the pathway lessons. And I had all this paper spread out on the table. And he was just going from paper to paper to paper, not focusing. And I realized that the environment wasn't good for his focus. I cleared off the table and had one sheet of paper. And again, laser focus. All that disruption, the environment was gone, and he was able to feel more in control and focus on what we're talking about. The A for activity. One thing we try to do in this program is fight loneliness, helplessness, and boredom. And boredom is huge. When you can't do the things you used to do because of dementia, the boredom can create behavioral issues, and we need to engage them in positive activities that, again, gives them little successes each day. The C for think peace is crowded, kind of like the noise level earlier. There's just too many people around, too many conversations going on, distracting them, and it's hard for them to process all those interactions. So again, their anxiety level is going to go up with too much noise or too many people around with conflicting conversations. And E at the end of the day is just exhaustion. There's a term that we'll talk about next month called sundowning. And sundowning usually happens, 4, 5, 6 o'clock at night. This is somewhat similar. It's just exhaustion. Going through the day, trying to remember, beating yourself up that you can't, all that anxiety just exhausts people from day to day. And sometimes they just need to lie down, take a nap, and restore some of that so that they can focus and be part of the environment around, whether they're in a home with family members or in a facility. So exhaustion is huge. Okay, just some more stats to finish up here. AARP and MetLife years ago did a famous study, one of the most extensive studies of seniors ever done for people over 65 years old, and 95% of the responses to this one section saying, I want to stay home. I don't want to go to a nursing home. I can hear my grandmother talk about when she got old, she's just, somebody shoot me. Don't ever put me in a nursing home. Nursing homes are good these days. Back in my grandmother's day, there was no such thing as assisted living or independent living. There was just the old folks home. And thank God that industry is good and they do a lot of good things. But 95% of us when we age want to try to stay home as long as we can. And they found out on the assisted living residents that over half of them don't have a chronic disability. The level of care really doesn't require an institution, but sometimes families want to move them to an institution and maybe take the guilt away. But 75% of those in assisted living could be back home with just a little assistance. Sometimes there isn't family members around to provide that, but that's one of the things that people sometimes get rushed into a facility because of the dementia, and physically wise, they're not in that bad shape. So this is just a cost figure about it is less expensive to stay at home with some care than those in nursing homes. So there is help out there. If you've got a loved one with dementia, and there's 25 causes of dementia, there is respite. Having Dad with us for 7.5 years, we needed help. So we had friends come in, relatives from time to time, and we also engaged a home care agency to come in and give us relief. Here in Denver, we have one of the best and strongest Alzheimer's associations in the entire country. They offer support groups, and support groups we highly recommend. when you're in this with a loved one with dementia, you feel like you're the Lone Ranger, and there's resentment and feeling of loss on your own. These support groups, I guarantee you there's somebody in a support group that's ahead of you in this process that can help you out, and there's probably somebody behind you that you can share your experiences with them. There's many adult daycares available that have programs for those with dementia that give you some respite. And then there's also support through the Veterans Association. Okay, just a quick summary. Those with dementia may not remember your name, but they do remember how you made them feel. So that's why I went through that list of not correcting and not trying to reason with them. We want to support them, want to make sure we're not constantly correcting them. We want to praise them. When they have good days and have those small successes, we want to praise them. So thanks for your attention. Please come back next month. We're going to get more details than this on dementia and those that are reversible, and some more tools for you besides the Think-Peace process. Mindy, you have any summary thoughts or anything you'd like to say? I've dominated the conversation.
The supportive part that when my father was beginning to forget things, and my mother would say, "Oh, your dad's, you know, forgetful, or he gets to the store and he didn't take his list," or there's things that are slow moving, and what we encourage people to do is to find out the nature of dementia. And we're going to talk about that next time. Sometimes it's about medication, and medications sometimes it can be out a urinary tract infection, believe it or not, can cause dementia. And there's a bunch of things that the public doesn't know that we would love to share with them, that you look into before you go, oh my gosh, dementia is going to turn into Alzheimer's, because that's the big fear. People think they're the same. And we'll cover that next time. But having that patience, and what I learned from someone in our industry that I thought was a novel metaphor, is that the person that you're with that has these memory issues is not doing it on purpose, number one. And number two, it's like Swiss cheese. Their brain is a little bit like Swiss cheese. So sometimes when the question and answer stuff is going on, they land on the cheese. And then the other times they land on the hole and there's nothing there. And they don't know when that's going to happen, and we don't know when that's going to happen. And if we can remember that it's just an anatomical thing that has happened. It's a physiological thing that's happened. And all the things that we're sharing with you are available. We have a printout that's called Think-Peace that has the 2-page acronym with many of the things that Roger showed on the screen. And we will be glad to give that to Englewood Library and have it available to you, or email it, however they want to do this. But thanks again to them for letting us come to you and give you hopefully some hope and some information that will help you in the future. That's all I've got.
Thank you so much, Mindy and Roger. That was amazing. Personally, I don't know a lot about dementia, so that was so informative to me alone. So I know that a lot of our patrons will enjoy this. I actually have a few questions myself, if you guys would be willing to answer. Yeah. Awesome. So again, I'm starting from ground zero here. Does someone with dementia know that they have dementia?
Not always. Denial is very strong in the human nature. Mm-hmm. And I've gone in and met with families, and the sons and daughters are beside themselves. Mom's driving and going through red lights and stop signs and hasn't changed out of her purple jumpsuit in 3 days. And the senior has no idea that that's going on. They think everything's normal. Many times, though, the adult kids do correct, and I've gone in and says, the senior will say, I'm right as rain, I'm fine, but they think I'm crazy, and they're in denial. So it's not always part of their processing that they do have memory loss. They'll discount things. They'll forget that they forgot. They'll forget that they drove off one day and got a call from the Inglewood police, and the loved one had to go and help pick them up because they were lost and they were just a few blocks from home.
I would like to jump in here on that same subject matter. One of the
Yes.
ladies that I care gave for was getting forgetful and not being able to find her way home, and her kids needed to take her car keys away, which is a whole nother conversation. And she said, I am not, and I'm fine. And we tried to get her to get a cell phone, and she didn't think she was getting lost. So we got her to go to the doctor to do what is called a mini mental. And there people would need to write that down. It's called a mini mental. Now, getting your mom or your neighbor, or your sister or grandma to that doctor is another story. But they will do some testing to find out where they're at on that spectrum. And there are virtual driving tests that someone can sit in front of a screen and do to assess whether they should have a license or not, or be in a car or not. Because senior citizens, especially like my mom, didn't want to go to the DMV. She didn't want to go anywhere, but we didn't want her to be driving. So Kaiser provided that virtual driving. And then she went, oh, because for her, doctors were kind of the last word. She had a lot of respect for them. That generation is very, can be very respectful of that. So they wrote a prescription for her to not drive anymore. But I wanted to offer some remedies with that.
That's great. Yeah, I'm sure plenty of people will find that helpful. I had no idea that there was actually an examination that they could take, especially virtually. So that's amazing. The other question that I have is, once someone does have dementia or is diagnosed with it, is it a sudden or a gradual, or does it really vary once they have it?
Depending on the type of dementia, and the most common one is Alzheimer's. Right now, Alzheimer's is 2 to 20 years. It's very unique among each individual. So the slide could be 2 to 20 years. There is a type of dementia called FTD, frontal temporal dementia, and that's a very progressive one. It hits the frontal lobe of the brain and it goes rapidly. It's not Alzheimer's, it's a different deterioration, and that changes the personality. And FTDs, or frontal temporal dementia, folks, is a much faster progressing one than Alzheimer's.
That is what my father died of.
Yeah, it's
But
a tough one.
it didn't resemble Alzheimer's there in many ways, and that it's unfortunate because it's very confusing for anyone to know all the different, what is it, what isn't it, especially when fear is driving, needing to know that for the person and for the family. So go ahead, Roger.
No, there are some meds, and we're raising money every year for Alzheimer's cure, and we'll get one eventually. But there's Aricept and Namenda, two different types of medications. They work differently in the brain chemically, and together in combination, they can help some people. The Aricept and Namenda doesn't help everybody. Some people it has no effect. Some people, they can't tolerate it very well. Sometimes it makes things worse, but there is help out there, and stimulating them and give them small successes and helping them on things they can remember and can still do for themselves is huge. It's just like flexing a muscle and working it out.
Now, this might be a silly question. Is dementia ever reversible in any cases?
Yes, and we'll cover that next month. There's 25 things that can create dementia, and Mindy mentioned one of them: urinary tract infection, dehydration. Looks like, acts like Alzheimer's, loss of memory, and it's just a matter of hydration and getting antibiotics to stop urinary tract infection. There's other disease processes that are reversible. So some people are afraid of the A word, the Alzheimer's, because right now there's not a cure. There's some things that can help mitigate things and make them a little more acceptable to the family, but there's not a cure now. But yeah,
That's
we'll
why
cover 20.
we always encourage, first and foremost, a family to go to a pharmacist and find out what the meds are and get somebody to take a look at whether they're creating this problem, because oftentimes that can be the case as well.
Yeah, a pharmacological review of all the meds. There's probably maybe counterindications. Here's what we see. Somebody falls, they go to ER, maybe get some meds. They get admitted to the hospital to get some more meds. They go to a rehab facility to get physical therapy, and then they come home. And I guarantee you, their meds list after that round of ER, hospital, rehab center back home, they've gained some meds from before they had the fall. So a good pharmacological review is helpful, because there could be something that could be causing the dementia.
Got it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Roger and Mindy. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to educate us. If you would like to visit their website, please feel free to go onto homewatchcaregivers.com. HomeWatch Caregivers phone number is 720-344-4700 if you'd like to give them a call if you have any questions. Thank you again, guys, and I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend.
You too. Stay safe. Be well.
You too.